There have been some developments from the EU today regarding Ukraine. What can you share with us?
The European Union is committed to continue its support for Ukraine in facing off the brutal illegal aggression from the side of Russia. Today, actually, as we speak, top representatives of the European Union are in Kiev physically to convey to the Ukrainian counterparts the level of support and solidarity by the European Union. The President of the European Commission, the High Representative for Foreign Policy, are in Kiev talking to President Zelensky, to Prime Minister Shmyhal, and bringing new support for Ukraine, both in financial terms, in macro-financial assistance, meaning budget support, so more dozens of millions of euros for the Ukrainian economy, but also pledges of concrete support when it comes to weapons deliveries. European Union already allocated 1 billion of euros for purchases of weapons for Ukrainian armed forces, and we just announced that we are topping up this amount of 1 billion euros by another 500 million euros. So these are the two concrete deliverables from this visit, which is yet another example of our solidarity and how much we support Ukraine and how much we stand with the people of Ukraine.
Peter, we know that there is an overall large commitment from the EU to support the people of Ukraine. What specifically, though, triggered this latest round of assistance for Ukraine? Was there some specific event or development?
The European Union, right from the start of the illegal Russian aggression on 24th of February, was there and reacting with concrete support to Ukraine, both in terms of providing financial means, humanitarian assistance, economical assistance, also military assistance. But at the same time, we were also sanctioning Russia, trying to use the sanctions as the only tool which we have as European Union, because we are not the military alliance, sanctioning the Russian political leadership in order to cripple their ability to continue financing the bloodshed they are committing in Ukraine against Ukrainian people. So the occasion today was, of course, the physical presence in Kiev. Until now, it was not really very possible to go to Kiev, but now we use the situation and developments to be in Kiev in person, to show our solidarity to Ukrainian people, to show that we are in Kiev. And of course, if you go to visit, you don't go empty-handed. But what we are doing as a European Union, right from the start of this crisis, and not only from the start of the invasion in February, but right since 2014, actually, when Russia annexed Crimea, which is Ukrainian territory, when Russia started the unrest in the eastern parts of Ukraine, we were helping Ukraine, and we were giving Ukraine since then up to 17 billion euros to help Ukraine to cope with the consequences. So we are standing by Ukraine. It's our neighbor, so it's logical, and there is always an opportunity to help and to do even more to help them cope with the consequences of this illegal and brutal aggression.
Peter, today, the 8th of April, 2022, as you announced this, just hours before you announced this, there was another brutal example of the cynicism that appears to be behind those that are perpetrating these crimes, these war crimes in Ukraine, when a train station was bombed. And there are images circulating that have essentially been certified that there was one particular Russian rocket that crashed into this train station that had the words written on it for the children. And that is absolutely horrendous. And you consider what took place yesterday, the train station, had been attacked. And there are those that are believing many of the thousands of people that were there waiting to leave were the targets of this. So how does the EU react to that?
Well, this is yet another example of the inhuman and really deplorable behavior of the occupation troops directed from Kremlin, that they attack a train station, which is obviously a civilian target, a civilian infrastructure, and a train station which is full of people who are fleeing the conflict. And those who are fleeing the conflict are not the fighters. The freedom fighters, they are defending their motherland. But the people who are fleeing the conflict are mostly vulnerable people, older people, women, children. So this is a very cowardly attack. Yet another example, after the massacres in Bucha and in other places which are coming to light of the day, which are being gradually discovered and reported on. This is just another example of the inhuman behavior. And Russia, by the way, was yesterday by the UN General Assembly was kicked out of Human Rights Council. Russia's membership was also suspended in the Council of Europe, which is a very important European organization dealing with human rights. So these are actions which are not really in line with the country which is a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Unfortunately, this is the reality. Putin's regime is spitting on all the international obligations his country has. He is disregarding UN Charter. He is disregarding international humanitarian law. And most of all, which is the most tragic thing, is that he disregards life of civilians, of vulnerable, innocent people, women, children, elderly. So this is absolutely inhumane. And I think it should be an incentive for the entire international community to join forces and to do whatever we can to stop this senseless bloodshed of an inhuman regime.
So you talk about the entire world coming together to do something about this. You know, a lot of countries don't have money. Certainly don't have the kind of money that the EU has, that the US has, and that some other countries independently have. Is there an effort underway to develop other types of assistance that these countries can do? Because, you know, it's really clear everything matters in this particular situation. The more of the world that shows up matters. I mean, we noticed during the UN General Assembly meeting, there are several countries that abstained, several countries that voted against kicking Russia out. I think some of that had to do with Russia contacting them and asking them not to. So what is it that other countries that don't have money can do to help Ukraine?
It's not only about money. The clear priority right now is twofold. One is to stop Putin in continuing this brutal aggression. And second priority is to help Ukraine to deal with the consequences. That means humanitarian assistance to those millions of people who were forced to flee. More than 4 million Ukrainians within 4 weeks left the country. They are mostly in the European Union. We are taking care of them. But there are more than 6 or 8 million people who are internally displaced. These people also need to be taken care of. Tomorrow, the European Union initiated, together with the Canadian government, a pledging event which will take place in Poland, exactly in order to raise funds for these people who have been internally displaced and forced out of the country. And the countries who don't have money, I mean, they can join the international efforts to sanction Russia, join our sanctions. We introduced 5 very massive rounds of sanctions. Today, the 5th package of the sanctions was adopted. 40 countries, over 40 countries have adopted either similar sanctions or took similar measures in order to cripple the ability of Kremlin's war machinery to finance the aggression against Ukraine. So you can introduce sanctions. You can join the international efforts to isolate Russia, to exercise pressure on Russia. If Russia sees that the international community is united in condemning and calling for ending of this aggression, then they will realize that in the end they are alone. Until now, we managed to gather 140 countries on the right side of the history to stand up for Ukraine, to condemn the aggression and to call on Russia to stop. But Russia, it's apparently not enough because Russia continues. So the international efforts need to be increased. And everyone in the international community, every country, the poor countries, the developing countries, everyone, regardless how much money they have, they need to make clear to Russia that this is not acceptable behavior from a permanent member of UN Security Council that decides about the fate of the world. But at the same time, it's disregarding the very principles on which this organization, the UN, is based on.